Hey, it's Grayson. Wanted to give you a video that's more about some practical tips. Um, this one's going to be on how to plan your treatment for a chronic illness or injury to avoid wasting time. There's something I kind of realized. My injury really happened back in August of 2016. We're sitting here in 2019. Feels like I finally made progress, finally getting back to where I was. But things really didn't go the way that I planned them or wanted them to go, which that's to be expected. God leads us in all different directions. Those types of things are to be expected. But I think that there is quite a bit of value in actually being able to plan out things so you're not wasting time, because I'm just thinking of like certain treatments, certain things I did that were wastes of time, and I kind of knew they were wastes of time, but I did really nothing about them and just consumed resources and really didn't do much. um, so let's kind of reverse engineer my mess ups and figure out how you can avoid being in a situation where you're sitting somewhere 3 years after your, or however many years after your illness started or after your injury, and you're like, there's so much more I could have done back then, and none of it actually happened. So the first step in this is really just to set what your goals are. What is it that you want to get, short term, long term? What is it that you want to get? Um, Number two, you want to evaluate your resources, the resources that you have available to you. Excuse me. Tell this is totally impromptu. Just thought of this. Um, which doctors are you working with? What facilities you're working with? What's your insurance plan? um, how do they work, and kind of evaluate those resources, evaluate and your personal resources, like how much how much money do you have to spend on things, how long can you go as far as living expenses, and then what you need to do is you need to, and this is very important, talk openly with your healthcare providers about what it is that you actually want to get out of it, and try to get a better idea of what the timelines look like, and plan those out and see, and and then once you kind of know on a broader scale how things are going to go, then you start to kind of go more granular. When you start working with particular doctors or therapists, you want to assess what their strengths and weaknesses are. One of my biggest regrets in all of this is trusting people that really, even though they're perhaps well intentioned, didn't actually know what they were doing. So what you want to do is you want to question, and I'm using that not in a adversarial or judgmental way, but more of like an inquiry into how that particular provider is going to help you and what experience they have and why they think that's going to happen. So when you meet with somebody new and you're planning to work with somebody for your treatment, you want to make sure that they actually know what it is they're doing, or it's the best. They have good enough knowledge that they can make up for it in research or whatever if what you're dealing with is not something too straightforward. Um, and you want to make that assessment relatively quickly. You don't want to be going down a path. So once you're going on a path toward treatment, you've kind of decided on what treatment plan you want to take. If things are not going as expected, you need to take action quickly. So it's number four. If things aren't going as expected, you need to take action quickly and figure out what is going wrong. Sometimes it could just be things taking time, but you need to figure out if it's just that things are taking time, or if you have gone down the wrong path and you need to go down a different path. If you have some suspicions about the particular treatment you're getting, or you're a suspect, you're like, I don't think this place is going to help me, then once you have those predefined timelines that you've gotten based upon the information you have for your providers, and things are not going the way they should, you need to question it. You need to question it probably rather aggressively. Um, And then if the answers aren't satisfying you, then you need to look into other options. And you need to make sure that this is done efficiently, because I wound up going, I'll give you an example. I wound up going to this one physical therapy place for my balance. And I was going there for months on months on months on months. I didn't really bother to like tell them, okay, this is helping me just a little bit. When are we gonna get to a point where this is gonna be fixed? And there's sort of like this like false feedback, placebo. And if you don't, you need to know if you're not getting significant enough of improvement, just the fact that you feel good or you're getting some improvement may not be what you're looking for, because you're gonna kind of have it hit you like a ton of bricks that you're the same as you were before if you're not actually keeping track of these things. And then you have to know what exactly is when things are going to come into place and how things are going to work together. So number 6, you have to understand how the synergies are involved and the sequences that are involved. In my case, I had some startle responses, PTSD type stuff, difficulty with contact with my head. So some of the therapies that I had gotten approved for at some point were like, okay, you're gonna have this gyroscopic thing that you're in, and I was too scared of it, and I thought I was giving myself further injury, and that's why I didn't go through with it. So you have to understand what the window of opportunity is and how things have to coincide with each other, and try to plan them out as best as possible, and know what items have to come into place for the next thing to come into place, so you're not skipping around. But then, to the contrary, if you can't predict when the resources will be available, if resources are like, this is really applicable, number 7, this is really applicable if you're in an HMO plan. If resources are like a unpredictable surf break for you, that like you don't know when you're gonna get bigger waves, you don't know when you're gonna get that opportunity ever again, then you have to try to find every way possible to take advantage of those resources as soon as possible, as long as it's safe and appropriate for you to do so. I got approved to go see a neurologist at UCI, and because it was coinciding with the day of my accident, I decided not to go. And that was the doctor who was going to kind of help me figure out whether or not this crazy gyroscope thing was actually safe. And now it's a fight to get it back. So if you have a HMO and you have to play by their rules, when you get something, you have to latch onto it pretty darn quickly, as long as it's safe for you to go ahead and do so, because you never know when they're going to change their mind. And that instability is something you have to learn how to work with. So you might have to deviate from your plan just to deal with that. And then lastly, what you have to make sure of, if you're not getting what you need, and you've tried going down different routes, you need to know what your remedies are, what your legal options are. Unfortunately, I'm having to go further. I'm getting neurofeedback treatment, which is supposed to be paid for by my insurance, but they didn't reimburse, and now we're getting to the point where it's getting close to legal action. So you have to know what those options are, and you have to know how to execute them, and you have to know how to execute them in line with your overall strategy. So you have to kind of so you just keep laying out the strategy, then you go more granular into what little bits of progress you want to be seeing. If something's not happening, you need to change direction quickly and in accordance with the timelines that you figured out, using your own knowledge and the knowledge of your providers. If you don't think somebody is really good at what they're doing, or if they seem like they have certain competencies, you need to make sure that you know what the competencies of that provider are. And if they really know what they're doing, just because they have a certain specialty or certain name attached to them or certain title doesn't mean they necessarily have specific competencies. So you have to really ask them, what are you going to do? Ask them right away, and this is how you're going to kind of form your plan. What are you going to do for me, and how long is it going to take? What are your expectations for this? And And then you want to then make sure that you stick to that. You want to make sure that you sort of note to self: don't eat right before recording a YouTube video. You have to then assess where it is or how far you've come, why it's not going further, and whether or not you have any other options. And if you try to find other options and you get stifled, then you may have to look into legal action. But when you're given the opportunity to get something really good, you have to figure out if you can take advantage of it and it's legitimately safe for you. Try to get everything in line so that it's safe, in coordination with everybody, that you're working with all your providers, and figuring out where the synergies or the necessary threshold steps are, and get through those threshold steps as soon as possible to make everything be effective. Probably going to take you through some more like on paper planning approaches that I'm going to try to use on myself. But that kind of gives you a broad overview of some of the things you need to watch out for so that you're not wasting time in your treatment process. Because you won't know if you're wasting time if you're not really keeping track of time, and you can only keep track of time if you know what things time correlates to. And you can only make things work within a particular schedule if you know how to develop the resources and cultivate and allocate things out to the team of people you have working for you and the resources you have in accordance with that. Plan to bring you some more of these videos on this channel, so if you like what you saw, like and subscribe. This has been an installment of Rebuilding the Renegade. This is we'll have like more of a how-to video from this, but I'll be sharing with you some more of my personal experiences and some more ideas of how you can get yourself back to not just normal or the way the doctors want to put you back together necessarily, but get to the place you actually want to be, which may or may not be the traditional definition of normal. Set those goals, find a plan for them, and God bless you on your journey.